My name is Pearl White. My maiden name is Thomas. And I was born and raised here in Jacksonville. I lived as a small child on Davis Street between 4th and 5th. And growing up in that neighborhood, I happened to be the only little girl in the neighborhood. There were other, little boys, but we had a lot of teenagers that lived in our neighborhood. And in that area at that time, you had not Blodgett Homes, which was an area that was built by the government for military families and low-income families. And you had numerous number of kids that lived there. The closest school in our neighborhood at that particular time was Darnell Cookman, which was an elementary school at the time. There were no other schools between where Darnell Cookman is right now, that's where the original school was, until you went further down Davis Street, across the railroad track, and you got to a school that was called Davis Street School, which went from grades 1 through 9th.
What was your relationship with water? Whether that be a swimming pool, a beach, physically, mentally, spiritually, what did that relationship with water look like for you growing up?
Growing up until I got about 11 or 12, the only water that was around was the water in the bathtub in your house. There were no homes that had pools. There were no pools at all. And the closest swimming pool was on Pearl Street, between Pearl and Jefferson, and it was a pool for whites only. There were no pools anywhere around for blacks. The first pool to open in our area was in 1950, and that was Jefferson Street Pool, which is now named after Julius Ginyard. The whole area, that whole park is named for him, and it took us quite a few years to get that park named after him. And I started there at, I think, at age 11, and I was already swimming. And I am one of the, I think it's about 2 of us left, the oldest member of the original Jefferson Street swim team. And once it opened, Mr. Ginyard was the first director of the pool, and we wound up years later working together for the Y. I started teaching swimming for the Y in New York City when I lived there at an indoor pool that was about 3 or 4 blocks from my apartment. And when I came back home to stay in '69, immediately I went to the closest Y to where I was living, just to see what they were doing and what kind of programs they had and everything. And the same summer I got back home was the same summer I started working for the YMCA again, where I worked for 38, 39 years before I retired.
Has your relationship with water changed? And what does that relationship to the water and with the water look like now?
Well, it's kind of iffy in some spots, because even when I came back, when I was here as a child growing up, Jefferson Street Pool was the only pool for black kids. And we had an abundance, of course, of children who came to learn how to swim that very first summer. And summers after that, we got more and more kids that came in. It cost 10 cents to come in the pool. And the children from Blodgett homes, a lot of them were left during the daytime without any supervision at all because dad or mom was away in the service, and what other parent or grandparent was watching the kids, they had nothing to do. So they would come. Swimming was free. They would come in the morning from 10 to 12 for their swimming lessons. We had lunch from 12 to 1. 1 o'clock, they would come with their dime to come into the pool, and they would be there until we closed for dinner. And dinner, we would close at 4:30. The kids would simply go out on the playground, which had no equipment. It was just a dirt lot. They'd go out there and play for an hour, and then they would come back when we would open up at 5:30. And we had to make sure that ones of us that were older, we had to make sure that downstairs where they had the lockers and the showers, that they showered, because they would have sand and dirt on them from playing in the yard, and we didn't want that to, come up and be in the pool. And they would come up and they would be there until 7 o'clock when we would close, and they'd go home. So we were like babysitting all day long with these kids, but it provided a safe environment for the kids. They were well supervised, well behaved, because Mr. Ginyard was a stickler for behavior. There was no fighting allowed, no cursing allowed, and no playing around in foolishness in the water. If so, they were taken out, and they had bleachers on the upper level. They were made to sit. It was like a timeout, that they had to be out of the water until they calmed down, or whatever was going on was cleared up, and then they were allowed back in the water.
In what ways does water and memory in your life and in your community, how has that influenced your understanding of healing and your understanding of history, our history as a Black people, and your understanding of belonging? Where does water and memory come in together with that?
Well, like you say, Jacksonville is a water town. We're surrounded by water. All the subdivisions that have been built, you have private pools in homes, you have apartment complexes that have pools, you have clubs that have pools, and it's unconceivable to me, with all of this water, to have children and adults especially. It's no good to have a child in the house that can swim and you don't have an adult in the house that can swim if somebody gets in trouble in your pool, or a pool where you have your children, or you're just visiting and you don't know what to do. That's a disaster right there, a big problem ready to happen, an accident ready to happen. And I have seen in my lifetime a lot of things that needed to be improved in order to combat accidents and drowning. Every summer you hear of children in retention ponds because they're not fenced in. You have people who have pools in their own yard. They do not have safety fences around them. That means that a neighborhood child, not only your child, but a neighborhood child who could wander in and fall in. They advertise about having these alarms on your doors that if the door is opened, the alarm goes off because a little child has been able to open the door and you've got a pool out there. One of the things that we improved with the Y in most of the locations, especially the one where I spent my time before I retired, we required that once a week, a parent got in the water with the children, with their child, to see what we were doing with them and to also learn how to handle any situation that might come up, even if they were non-swimmers. Because even a non-swimmer can be a lifesaver to an adult or a child that's in trouble in water if they know what to do. Now, I think there needs to be one big thing going. When I taught school in New York, every child in the school had to pass swimming before they could graduate. And I was in a high school. We didn't have to worry about going any place to a pool because we had a pool in the school. And we taught swimming all year because we were inside. The outside temperature did not matter. We had heated water when it was cold, and we had towel service and everything within the school. Now, I know in a lot of counties and a lot of schools, they don't have the money for that, but using the pools that they now have, that they have built at all of these schools, the city pools, they could be used to fill that requirement. The more exposure that you have the students exposed to with water, the safer it's going to be. The biggest problem with blacks and water was fear. I'm going to drown. I don't want to get my hair wet. Hair can be redone. A child's life cannot be restored. And the fear should not be there. You take a shower, you take a bath. One of the main things I would always tell the parents of my very young children taking swimming was, put them in the shower, let them get used to the water running down over their face. Let them see, hey, the nose still works. I can breathe, although the water is running down. And if my face gets wet, I got two hands. Let's just wipe this water away and keep on going with what we're doing. We need to educate the adults. Then they can educate their children along with exposing them by putting them in a swimming class at a young age. The younger, the better. All of my children were in the water by the time they were 6 months old. One was born on Halloween. He was exposed to the water as soon as the weather changed in the spring. The other one was born in January. He was exposed when he was about 4 months old. The weather had changed. And we had to wait because of being in an outdoor pool. Another one was born in August and went immediately into the water. The younger they are, they've been in water for 9 months. They're not going to suck up any water in the nose, and when they go, you immerse them under the water and bring them back up. Their eyes are open. The mouth is closed. They're not swallowing any water. They're not breathing any water, and they can see. And all they need to see is your hands. If you've got them underwater, they need to see your hands, and they can reach for your hands. That's their security. But when they get used to the water is not going to hurt them, then they can take right to the water. Now, you're going to have some crybabies, but these are usually crybabies at home about everything. And once they find out that being a crybaby with you is not going to really work, it stops. And then they listen and they watch and they see what you do and they feel secure with you. And the reason we would have a parent come once a week and be in the water with the child is I wasn't taking them to the beach. I wasn't putting them in the pool at home or at their apartment complex. The parent was. So the children had all the confidence in the world in me, but they need to get it with mama or daddy or teenage brother or sister so that they could still have that learning process going on without being right, in a class itself, a formal class. So that's something that should be incorporated into the school system, and it would help tremendously. It would cut down on a lot of the drownings that we have, especially in Florida, with all the water and all the retention ponds we have. Every time they build a new subdivision, they build these retention ponds. They build a building, they build retention ponds. And you've got to let them know that's not a swimming spot. The beach is not a swimming spot. It's a play at the edge of the water spot. And in Florida, with all of our rip currents that we have, that's one thing that needs to be expressed and always in the forefront with kids going to the beach. Churches in the past, especially in history, they did all their baptisms in a river or a creek or whatever was close to the church. And they didn't know anything about swimming. You had a deacon and a pastor, somebody, two men in the water, and they were baptizing people. And they didn't know if the water was polluted or how dirty it was or what was in it, but that was water. And it's funny because whether they can swim or not, when people get baptized, they don't think about the fact that they're going to be submerged in water, because it's a different thing when it comes to baptism than swimming. They know they're in an area where there's sure footing, and they've got two people in the water with them that's going to, immerse them down in the water and bring them right back up. They're not going to fall down. They're not going to leave them down in the water. They're going to just duck them and bring them, right back up. And they're not afraid of that. But I guess it's the religious connotation that goes along with it too. But that's been going on forever.
With our rich history of Black communities and Black neighborhoods, how have you seen those communities change over time?
Integration had a lot to do with it, because job improvements and families seeking to own their own homes rather than live in apartments and things like that has improved tremendously, because you've got, like I said, pools in backyards. Families have been able to afford to buy homes with pools or move into neighborhoods where they have clubhouses, and they have several pools that are connected with the clubhouses, and they do it recreationally, and they also sometimes have camps during the summer. Now, summer camps have changed tremendously. When I was a child growing up, the only places that I can remember as a child having what would be considered as a summer camp were churches, where they had vacation Bible schools, as they called it. And they either had it for a week or for 2 weeks. And at the end, they would have some type of recreational celebration, if you want to call it that way, for the children that had been there. And most of the time, it was a beach trip, because we didn't have the pools. We didn't have the access to the water other than natural water, which was here was American Beach. And they would take busloads of kids, and they would take a lot of dads with them to get in the water, whether the father could swim or not, they made like a line. You don't go past that line in the water so that the kids could be in the water. Now you have all kind of summer camps. You have some that are just for swimming. You have all of the camps that they have at the Y, which I'm very familiar with, but you have a lot of churches that have them. You have a lot of community centers that have them, and there's more exposure. And when integration came in, then you had black families who had a chance to be in areas and have more exposure to the water in swimming pools and summer camps that they did not have originally, and it has helped quite a bit. But there's still a long way to go. We're still having too many drownings of young children. It shouldn't be.
What is one word, just based on what you just saw briefly, that would tie this exhibition to Jacksonville's history with water?
Being familiar with water, being familiar with the water that's in their area, what is available to them, not only just for recreational purposes, but for learning purposes. And they look very relaxed. And the one thing that you have to be with swimming to be successful is to be relaxed in the water. Because when you have that fear, that inner fear, you're going to be stiff. You're going to tighten up your muscles, and you need to have your muscles very relaxed when you're in the water to be able to coordinate your strokes, your leg movement, your body movement with whatever you're doing in the water. The more relaxed you are, the faster you're going to learn, the more you're going to remember what to do. And in a case of an emergency, you won't panic. Your mind will automatically let you know, all right, I need to turn over and float. I need to see what's around me. Where's the closest area that I can get out of the water safely? Can I take anybody out with me that's having some problems? Can I help somebody that's close to me that's a little bit panicky? They don't really know, and all you got to do is look at the face and watch their body movement to see if they are in trouble, and then know you as a person, what can I do to help them? And that we both can get out of this and be out of it safely.
But how do we continually educate the parents, educate the youth, educate our children on not just the history and the resilience of our Black communities, but of having that relationship to the water? How do we continue that water education, not just in our Black communities, but in communities as a whole?
Community involvement. You've got to get organizations who will push or even set it up where you have some of these clubs and clubhouses in Ys, whether it's the YMCA or the YWCA, to have evening activities, family activities, where you may bring the parents in with the kids for some counseling, or you may have some of the neighborhood schools come in with their counselors and talk with the parents about what's going on in some of their neighborhood schools that they may not be that familiar with, and then give them some free time in the water with their children or with instructions to get them over the fear of the water. If I'm your parent and I'm sitting up there like this, like a nervous Nelly, while you're in the water, because I'm afraid, and I'm not even in the water. I'm sitting on the sidelines, and my child is looking at me. Why are you so upset? If you're come on, get in the water with me, and we're having fun in the water. This is a playtime for us where we can share and we can have fun. And then your child is learning how to swim. Okay, let your child teach you a stroke, or teach you how to kick, or teach you how to use your arms, teach you a little bit about rhythmic breathing. Let them do to you what their swim instructors do to them. Get a handful of water, pour it right over the top of the head, and just let it run down the face. And you see that the eyes and the nose and the mouth still work. And all you got to do is just enjoy it, but make it a family affair, and then get these organizations to back up what they're doing. It's going to make, again, a safety factor for your whole community.
If there's one thing you wanted people to take away, what would that be?
Besides the safety factor, water has been a part of human life since the beginning. The story of Moses. His mom saved his life. She put him in a basket, and she put him out to float so that they wouldn't kill him, because they were killing all the baby boys. She took it upon herself to save her child by putting him in the water. She didn't think about maybe the basket might sink and her child would drown. She thought about it would float and somebody would find him. And they did. And he was raised by the Pharaoh. If people would think, now I won't say logically, because too many people don't think logically, but for those of us that do think logically, I would rather my child be in a safe environment, and I know that my child is safe, whether it's with me or with somebody else. That would be my first thought. And in an area where water is everywhere, and I don't want my child to be a victim because children like water. Handicapped children, especially autistic children, are drawn to water. I have no idea why, but I do know that they are drawn to water because I have taught some autistic children. I have taught some adults that had mental problems, physical problems, muscular problems. And water is very relaxing to them. And just to be able to say, I can get in the water, I can do this. And they have that feeling that they have had this accomplishment. That means that they're out of the area where they're familiar with the water, but they're in another area where there's water. They still got that feeling inside, so they're going to get in the water. And it's just a normal reaction. But we've always got to remember, we're here. The water is here. It's not going away. We're not going away. It's going to be passed down from generation to generation. So let's pass down something that's going to be enjoyable. It's going to be relaxing. It's a family affair type thing. And we've got to have that safety thing always in the back of your mind. And the only way to do that is to prepare for it. Have the children and the adults exposed to the water. Know what to do in a panic situation. Even if you can't swim, you can assist somebody in the water that is having a problem. And that's one thing we focus on when we're teaching swimming. We teach our children, find what's close. Somebody's in the pool, they're having a problem. You can't reach out to them. You're not strong enough. You're not tall enough to reach and grab them or tell them, grab my foot and I'll pull you in. You've got a chair, you've got a lawn chair, you've got a cooler that's there. A lawn chair will float, a cooler will float. The water hose, let it still be connected to the faucet, but throw that water hose to them and tell them, catch it, and you pull them in. Anything, a rake, a broom, whatever is there that you can use to help rescue someone from a pool or from a body of water that's going to save their life. That's what it's all about. Looking out for each other.